Hey everybody, good afternoon. My name is Dustin Strong and this is Strong on Health's Ask Me Anything Hour. Tuesdays and Thursdays at about 1:30, we're going to get on here and we're going to answer questions that have been submitted to us throughout the week via email. And if you have a question, you can email us at info@strongonhealth, or you can type it in right now and we will save that for the next one so we can answer it for you. We've got a couple of questions here. I've had a lot of questions about makeup lately, and obviously it's not something I have a lot of intimate experience with, and usually I like to share things that I have a personal experience with. But I did look into the specific brand that someone sent, and what I do like about it, it is free of a lot of the chemicals that tend to be in a lot of makeup. And I think the takeaway here is if you are taking something and applying it to your skin every day, you should probably be aware of what's in it and aware of whether or not the chemicals that are in it can cause you problems or are toxic for your body, or if it's a stressor on your body, because oftentimes that can be something that people aren't just even thinking about, the fact that they're doing it. So Pacific is great, but there was a young lady in here the other day who suggested another brand. So anybody who's out there watching who thinks that they have a really clean brand, I'd love for you to post it in the comments below, share it with us, and we can kind of take a look at all those together. But also use this as a community aspect to reach other people if you think you have something that's really good to be helpful. And if we think it's absolute garbage, we'll erase it, no offense, but we will, and I'll tell you why. Okay, we have a question about superfood greens, and this person says they use this one. It's called Activated U. Now, I didn't get a chance to find the actual ingredients online, and here's my request. If you are going to send in a product like this for me to review, please take a clear picture of the ingredients and also the other ingredients, because that's really where we're going to find sneaky things hidden in there. Of course, is this one that I would use, or do I prefer? I prefer eating whole foods, honestly, and I know that you're probably going to get things like your broccoli and kale and greens in this, and there are a time and a place that you probably need to add that into your life if you're just not eating them on the regular. But of course, number one, number two, number three, I would always suggest finding a way to just even get a little bit of these whole foods in there. Almost any restaurant in the area is going to be able to have those, and of course your grocery store is going to have a better choice. But please do send a picture of that and I'll give you a more thorough explanation of it. And we have a third question. I have trouble eating tomato sauce when eating Italian food. It's the only food that gives me a stomach ache. Is this related to stomach acid, or do you think it's an allergic reaction? I don't get acid reflux, I get diarrhea almost immediately after eating tomato sauce, especially on an empty stomach. So really good question, and again, I'm not sure where you're getting the sauce from, but if it is a sauce that you're getting from a jar, I'd love to see the entire ingredient list, because a lot of things can be hidden in Italian sauces. And I'll give you a hint, most Sicilians and Italians I know put sugar in their sauce because it makes it sweeter and taste better. So sugar can be inflammatory, and that can be something that you're reacting to in response to, in combination with the other aspects of what's happening in the tomato. So people do tend to sometimes have an acid reflux reaction to tomato sauces because of the acid in there. But here's a point that I want to bring up, and this was actually brought up today. We were speaking at the Rotary about the Healthy This Way initiative. And a lot of the menus that we're highlighting in the restaurants in the area, we're going to be looking for things like beans on the menu. And one person came up and said, hey, what about the lectin thing? Dr. Gundry talks about the fact that these lectins in these beans are really hard on people, and the same thing with tomatoes. So if anybody knows who he is, he's a surgeon who's talking about how food is affecting your health, which is great, but also the information that he's giving is just not the whole picture when it comes to tomatoes and beans, because what he's talking about is a protein called lectin. And lectins are in those, and I would agree that he's onto something, except for the fact that the blue zones, the areas where people have the lowest rates of disease and the highest rates of living long, eat them almost every day. So there's an inconsistency there, and we always have to look at it from a different perspective as opposed to just taking somebody's word on it because they're an authority in some way, shape, or form in the category of health. So we still have to think about it for ourselves. And the thing to understand about lectins is they are a protein, and lectins can be harder for some people to digest. And so it is more likely an issue with not having enough stomach acid, because most Americans seem to have some level of inability to digest things because they're eating on the go, they're eating too big of portions, they're mixing with too many liquids. There's multiple things that are creating that condition. The fact that it's specific to Italian food and tomato sauce, I would ask you, what are all the things that are included in this meal that could be actually the problem? Are you just eating tomato sauce by itself, or are you eating it on a pasta? Because pasta can have all kinds of things hidden in it. You could have glyphosates in there because it's commercially raised wheat. You could have gluten in there that you're having a hard time digesting. So it's hard to say that it's just one particular thing unless we know the whole picture. And that's really, if we're going to give an honest answer, we want to know all the ingredients before we can tell you exactly what might be the suspicious thing. But that would be helpful. Send us all the ingredients and we'll take a look at it. Okay, finally, we have a question about severe nosebleed recommendations. There's multiple, and it depends on the person, but the very first thing I would think of is obviously some level of dehydration, but also capillary fragility. So when we think about the vasculature in a human body, we have about 100,000 miles of pipe in us. 60,000 or so of that is so small that only one red blood cell can pass through single file at a time. So that's a lot of traffic on your whole body. And what keeps those pipes strong is a whole food vitamin C. And a lot of people aren't getting a lot of whole food vitamin C in their diet. They're taking things like Emergency, or they're taking a multi-supplement that has ascorbic acid in it, but they're not getting a whole food vitamin C. And you actually need what's called the rutin factor, or vitamin P as it has been called in many places, named after paprika, to be able to give you everything you need to strengthen the vasculature so that those little blood vessels aren't bursting and breaking because they're just so weak and so thin. So if we're looking at it from a nutritional standard, I would make sure you're getting a sufficient amount of whole food vitamin C. And what would that look like? We would be looking at things like strawberries and kiwi, bell peppers, red, yellow, green bell peppers. And actually sauerkraut is pound for pound the highest concentration of whole food vitamin C. So make sure you're getting whole food vitamin C in your diet and pay attention to other things that might be consistent with a vitamin C deficiency. So look that up on like Medical News Today or something, and if you're seeing a lot of that, perhaps you should look at getting a whole food vitamin C, but I do warn you to stay away from things like just ascorbic acid, because that can actually make the condition worse. Many times we've actually seen people go and get these vitamin C infusions, and all that is ascorbic acid, and actually creates almost a scurvy-like symptom because it destroys the vasculature in such a bad way because it's just too much, way out of proportion. Always steer clear of things that are going to be so highly isolated. Stick to things that are going to be close to how they occur in nature in a whole food form. Okay, and finally, we want to end with a beautiful success story. I don't know if those of you who are familiar, but we have a friend of ours who's a doctor that we care for very much in this area, and he wrote us a little success story because he wants people to know that there are options out there that can really change your life in certain ways. And he tells us a story of saying that he began having seizures after an auto accident in college, and it began as petit mal seizures for the first few months following the accident. After about 4 months, he had his first grand mal seizures, so these are more and more significant. He was put on 4 different medications over the duration of 3 years, continued to have seizures on all of them, and they were not as severe, but they were still occurring. He wanted a different approach. He quit the seizure medication. He went on something called Neurotrophin PMG. This is actually a standard process product that's very specific to brain support, and he wrote this because he wanted standard process to know how much this product has changed his life. And he said after 6 months, he was still seizure-free and felt more balanced than he had in years. He even felt like he was thinking clear, and he truly hopes that you don't give up the search for what can help you. That is my favorite line. Thank you, Dr. Keith. I truly hope you don't give up the search for what can help you, because there's always more that you can do to improve your health, and there's always more information out there that you can find when you ask the right questions, and you do not accept the limits that other people have put on your ability to heal things. I was at my wit's end, he said, when I found this product. Now I'm thriving. And we want you guys to be able to thrive too, so keep asking questions, keep them coming in. We really appreciate it. We enjoy answering the questions and making sure that you're empowered with the knowledge that you need, and especially empowered with the courage to keep asking questions beyond what other people have set as a limitation for you. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week. This Thursday, I don't believe we're going to be able to make an Ask Me Anything hour, so keep the questions coming and we'll get to those in a week. Thanks.